Do you need travel insurance for your next cruise? As a travel advisor and registered nurse, I get asked this question almost daily. But even I made the travel insurance mistake that cost me $20,000. And from that very moment, it completely changed the way I look at travel preparation. I'm going to share with you what every cruiser should know before the next trip, including how the cruise medical works, why medical evacuation insurance is important, and what mistake I wish I would have avoided. Let's talk about it. First, let's talk about onboard medical care. A lot of cruisers assume they understand this, and they really don't at all. Cruisers think, I get sick on board, I go to the medical center, I get treated, and they bill your insurance company. That's not how it works. You have to pay for this upfront, and it will be charged to your onboard credit account. And then when you get off the ship, you have to call your insurance company and file the claim yourself. This means you have to be prepared. If you seek medical treatment on board the ship, you need to be sure to keep your receipts, your prescriptions, your doctor's orders, and notes. You will need all this when you file your claim when you get off the ship with your insurance company. Next, cruisers think that the onboard medical center is the same as a hospital on land. It is not. Yes, they do have onboard medical professionals, doctors, and nurses, and they can assess, treat, and stabilize you. But the key word here is stabilize. Cruise medical centers are made to handle a lot of different medical emergencies on board, but if you need care up and above what they can give you, they will either have to make arrangements to get you off the ship via medevac or at the next port transport you to the nearest land hospital. And this is where your travel insurance becomes extremely important. One thing many travelers don't think about is the emergency medical evacuation coverage. If you have a serious medical emergency and need to be transported from the ship, that process can become extremely expensive. Depending on the situation, this evacuation can cost you from tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's why it's very important when you're choosing your travel insurance to make sure that it includes emergency evacuation coverage. Since travel insurance is often quite confusing, I've put together a checklist of the things that I recommend to my clients to have in their cruise travel insurance policy, and I will link that down below in the description. Now, this is something I've learned personally. It's the assumption that just because you have travel insurance, you assume that you are protected. In my case, that wasn't. I made one very important mistake that cost me $20,000. I was traveling outside of Canada and I needed emergency medical care. I didn't have my policy information readily accessible, which seems like such a simple thing, but since I didn't have it accessible, I was charged as a non-insured client, which gave me a bill of $20,000 American. When I got home, I did apply for reimbursement of the money, but it did take a year to get this money back. So what I learned and what I tell all my clients now is take a picture of your policy information, put it on your phone so that way you always have it with you because you never know when you may need medical emergency assistance. That's the biggest lesson I learned from my mistake. Travel insurance isn't about expecting something to go wrong. It's being able to protect yourself if something does go wrong. So there's one question that I get pretty often as a travel advisor, and it's what travel insurance company do you use? Now, I am Canadian, but I do use Allianz and Manulife personally for my travel. But I do want to emphasize one very important point. It's not the name of the company that protects you. It is what's included in the policy. So this is what we're going to talk about now and why this is so important. Every traveler is different. Your age, health, destination, trip cost. You need to make sure that your policy actually covers what you need for your travel. Before purchasing any travel insurance, make sure you understand the medical coverage limits, emergency evacuation coverage, trip interruption coverage, exclusions, and limitations, and what documents you actually need to make a claim. The goal isn't to have insurance. The goal is to know what type of insurance you have. Now, I did speak to a few retired and current cruise nurses about medical care on board, and they did actually tell me that while your onboard credit account will be charged for most medical care, if there is a larger scheme emergency, like a medical evacuation required, they will work with you and your insurance company. They won't stop you from having medical care. So if you go down to get an antibiotic or you have the flu and you need some hydration, yes, you will be charged to your onboard credit account. A larger scale emergency, they will work with you, so don't let this stop you from going on a cruise. But in the same breath, make sure you have your travel insurance so that way you will be covered and reimbursed for all of these situations on board. So before your next cruise, know exactly what your travel insurance covers, know and understand how the medical centers work, know the hours once you get on board the ship. Make sure you have your proper documentation with you at all times in case a medical emergency strikes you, and make sure that you have medical evacuation coverage on your policy. I understand that travel insurance is not the easiest thing to understand, especially when you go on a cruise ship, because there are a few more things that you need to make sure that you have on your travel insurance policy. That's why I have my checklist down below for travel insurance do's and don'ts. Be sure to pick that up. I'll link up in the description here as well my video on what I do to stay healthy on a cruise as a nurse. And I'm Ashley Neal. I'll see you next time.